Hey, how are you? It's Louisa Munson, and this is it day 4? Yeah, of this kind of trial experiment in doing a daily show. So anyway, so far so good. I'm really enjoying it, and I've got a like already. Thank you so much. So before I get started, I just want to find out a little bit about you, like who's listening in. I can already see there's some people, and I'd just like to welcome you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for helping me in this experience. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are on where it might go, because I've got some too. And I'd also, like to run them past you to see if it's something that you might be interested in or not. So who knows? I can see that we've got Shannon here messaging us all from with a big sort of, hey, all from Texas. We've also got Sarah Taylor from the north of Portugal. Hello. And yeah, I just want it to be a sort of like fun, kind of interactive kind of show. So, how are you feeling? That's the first big question, because like yesterday we had the advancement of the moon connected with Pluto. And you know what? Like, it's so intense. This is like Pluto's just changed signs. And so, with this connection of the moon and Pluto, we felt the sort of emotionalism of control and feeling almost like we're in disaster mode. So yeah, it's interesting to see how you're all feeling. Are you still buzzing from the beginning of the week with Jupiter and the sun in their conjunction, or are you starting to fade and fade fast? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I like that. So from Open Door Heart, we've got, I was going to say shitty, but I like intense better. Yeah, well, you can say what you like here. The way I see it, this is about us sharing and connecting. So let's bring it on. Anyway, here's what I've got some more. I feel like there's a bunch of energetic shrapnel flying around. That's such a good description, Sarah, because you know what? I've actually felt like almost like there's so much around me that it almost feels like I'm either going to get crushed, like I'm in one of those giant car crushing machines. It's like everything, and I'm just gonna, like, the life out of is going to be sucked out of me somehow, or like something is kind of like growing inside of me and I'm going to burst out. But there is this feeling that the boundaries are being really pushed at the moment. And I'm guessing, with Saturn recently going into the sign of Pisces, that can really happen. And yeah, we've got a ditto Sarah there. So it's safe to say it's pretty intense stuff at the moment. And if you were listening to any of my forecasts earlier this year, I did say that it feels like most of the business of a year kind of takes place in the first 4 months. In particular, March was intense, but I think the intensity has really set off a whole bunch of other effects. And now we're kind of living through them in April, and watch out for the end of May. Boy, does that get intense. So anyway, as I did yesterday, I wanted to like run you through what what we're gonna chat about over the next half hour, and also share with you some thoughts and the forecast for the weekend. So let's get cracking. So yeah. So today I want to have a look at the moon square sun. It's like in our birth charts, we'll have our sun in a particular position. We'll also have the moon in a particular position. And as the moon moves so much faster than the sun, like the moon will do a whole lap of the zodiac in 28 days. And it takes the whole, it takes the sun, the length of a year to do the same journey. So, they're moving at different speeds, and the moon makes different aspects to the sun. It makes different connections. These are mathematical connections. And so what we're looking at today is when the moon is in a square position. I'm trying with my hands. And essentially when it's 90 degrees away from the sun. Also going to do the forecast for the weekend. And also I just want to tell you about a new feature, because I've had since I've started doing these shows, and I love it because, I'm asking for interaction. I've had people comment on the shows and on other videos asking if I would have a quick look at the charts and stuff like that. And I'm really open for that. And what I'm going to do is do a big session on a Sunday. So at this time on the Sundays, until it no longer feels right, I will do like a mailbag. So if you message me, I'll pick out 3 topics or 3 people's charts to have a look at, and do a little 5-minute, maybe 10-minute tops, look through the chart to see what's coming up and to see if I can offer some advice. A bit like an agony aunt, an astro agony aunt. So go do a bit of that on Sunday, and also on Sunday do the forecast for the week ahead. So anyway, so I've got this lovely message from Nikki, giving me that she would like me to explain Chiron in Scorpio in the 10th, and also Mercury in Sagittarius, and Saturn in Aries, and how they all link together. So I will be doing that on Sunday. Thank you for that. So let's have a look at the forecast for the weekend. It's 5 minutes, and in the meantime, I'm going to be playing with these cards. Now they look really bold and kind of pretty groovy from this side, and then on the other side, and I wonder if anyone has ever seen these ones before. On the other side, we've got these lovely little pictures of plants. Now these are, I've had these since I was about 15, which is, they're at least 30 years old. These are Bach Flower Remedy color cards. So rather than pulling a tarot card today, I'm going to pull a Bach Flower Remedy card, suggesting maybe a mantra or something to look out for emotionally for this weekend. So anyway, let's get cracking. So for the weekend of the 15th and 16th of April, here are my thoughts in terms of the forecast. First of all, I just want to say, we're coming to the end of quite an intense time where Mars has been in a trine with Saturn, and that has really given us a little bit of fuel to get things resolved and sorted out. It's definitely given us a little bit more energy, possibly a bit too much. With the Sun and Jupiter having been in a conjunction this week as well, we've kind of got really sort of over the top quite quickly, and developed things, maybe with a lot of enthusiasm, but not that much time and care and caution. It might be time to draw it all back in. And we've got an approaching sort of energy system of Mercury coming into an alignment with Uranus, which is exciting, it's intuitive, information's likely to just drop. Now, this is quite an important thing, I think, over the weekend and then in the coming week. And I'm going to tell you about that on Sunday, in the big forecast, the weekly forecast session. But the energy of Mercury and Uranus, they're being supercharged right now, just before Mercury goes retrograde on the 21st. So make the most of your intuition and your new ideas this weekend. Anyway, on the 15th, we've got the moon in a square to Uranus, which is making people feel a little bit irritable, a little bit angsty. People aren't very patient, with each other. They're kind of flying off the handle. They're kind of just not very patient. There's a lot going on, and it's like this electricity, or it's almost a bit like our internal electricity and our internal energy systems aren't quite working together. It's almost like they're slightly out of sync, and it's kind of leaving this kind of nervous tension going on. So that's a little bit of a thing going on Saturday, and it's probably actually quite worth resting up. Later on that day, the moon goes into the sign of Pisces, and that is traditionally the sign and the time when we just have to put our feet up a little bit. We need to just relax. We need to daydream and bathe and renew and refresh ourselves rather than go crazy. This is not the time for that. It's a time for resting up, and just enjoying the pleasant things. In terms of flow, there's quite a lot of flow going on that day, because the moon is also, whilst it's in this square with Uranus, it's also in this lovely sextile with the Sun, and also in a sextile with Venus. And the moon in a sextile with the Sun is just playful and delightful, and it's just like at ease. People are just feeling the ease of the situation. And then Venus in the sextile with the moon, it's like we would just want to hang out with people. We just want to have really simple conversations, really simple connections, and it's really quite fulfilling. It just feels really great. And then as we move into Sunday, the 16th of April, we've got, I don't know, a little bit of old pathological loneliness kicking in, a little bit of neediness kicking in. We've got Venus is in a square to the moon. We've also got Saturn in a conjunction with the moon. Now, with the moon Saturn conjunction, it tends to make us feel a little bit detached from our emotions. So, we may well be feeling emotional, but we can't communicate it. We choose not to communicate it. In fact, we choose to kind of isolate ourselves, like really come back. We take our voice out of the situation. And then, with the moon and Venus in a square, it can bring about a little bit of cattiness. We're not. Wow. um, Thank you if you're still here. Yeah, I just got disconnected from the internet by my son who's entertaining his friends. So, yeah, I certainly did freeze up. I just had to run downstairs and yell at a load of 11-year-olds at why they suddenly disconnected the internet. That's what happens when you work at home, eh? And now I'm going to have to reload my presentation. Do you know what? I feel a bit discombobulated now. I don't even know how to find my presentation. Never mind. What I need to do is calm down, and this might actually make some sense. So I don't know where we got to with the with the forecast. I think I was getting to the end of that. Basically, on a Sunday, it's time to kind of step back and do a little bit on your own. And as you start to feel more like yourself, I love this comment from Sarah. All part of the shrapnel. Yes, I really wasn't expecting to. Be sabotaged from within the family. Oh, how we laughed. Anyway, I did pull 2 cards for the energies for this weekend. And I'm still slightly in shock by this, I have to say. And one of them, and this is, you won't see it on this side because it's green. And I got a green screen, but it's vervain. That's the plant that's going to be quite useful. And it's for the overcare of others. So watch out if this is a pattern that you're going through. It's for overly missionary tendencies, where you're getting too involved and not letting people evolve in their own way. I've got a message there from headquarters downstairs. Great recovery. That's from my producer, Carl. Thank you, love. And then I've got a mantra for you this weekend as well, and it's large. And it says, God loves me and wants me just as I can become through his grace and my own efforts. Now, not everyone believes in God in the same way. Not everyone uses the same language. But, how I would take that. You know, use the language, imagine the language you need to make that work for you. But it's like, you know, we have a place in this world. You know, we're all here for a reason, and that, you know, when we sort of connect into our intuition, we really come alive. So there you go. Anyway, let's have a look now at the sun and the moon in a square and how they can affect us, you know, how they show up. And I'll give an example of a couple of real charts. So let's see how that's going. In fact, it'd be interesting to know if anyone here has actually got like the sun and the moon in an opposition or a square. Do you know where your sun and moon are? You know, it'd be interesting to sort of like compare what's going on for you as well. So anyway, let's bring this onto the screen. So basically, the moon square the sun. So you'll see it written like this, you know, with a moon symbol, a square, and a sun. Some people put the sun first and the moon after. I tend to put the fastest moving planet first, because the fastest moving planet is the one that will be catching up to the slowest moving planet usually. And so if you were to look at your birth chart as a wheel, they would be kind of this distance apart from each other. So you'll see there's 3 signs between them. And if we were to replicate that pattern again, and then again, and then a final time, you would have your square. So these are said to be 90 degrees away from each other. So if you drew a point into the center of the wheel, there's a 90-degree space between them both. So there you go. There's the moon and there's the sun. Now you'll see I've drawn a red line here, and that's because the squares are known as being really quite challenging, really, really challenging. And I mean, the thing with the square energy is the planets are kind of working in a way that creates a need for action, and it creates a lot of tension, a lot of conflict. It's quite hot-headed. It's quite heated. It's quite a heated energy. And it doesn't last too long, which is the great thing, because the moon, if you know, it takes 28 days to get all the way around here. And what that means is it takes 2.5 days approximately to go through each sign. So every 2.5 days, it goes into another segment of the zodiac, and another and another and another. And what this means is there's 30 degrees in each sign, and the moon is moving 1 degree every 2 hours. So for instance, if you're born with the moon in a square to the sun, as the moon is approaching the square, you know, that could take let's say, I mean, how I tend to see it is we've got like a window of opportunity. So a lot of you know, when we're looking at these aspects, we don't necessarily look at an exact 90-degree angle between the two of them. They might be slightly less, like 88, or they might be slightly more, like 91 or 93. And what we do is we say that there's an orb, and so we give them up to 8 degrees either side. Some astrologers use 10 degrees. I think that's a little bit too wide. But so, you know, if the moon is at, say, 80 degrees, I think that's a little bit too, it's not quite a square, but maybe 85 degrees, I would definitely be thinking that these guys are in a square, and the same if it goes over 90 degrees. But as the moon moves into the square and then away from the square, you know, it's pretty much done in half a day. So it's not a huge aspect, but it happens twice a month. So because the moon is moving all the way around here in 28 days, it's square here, and 14 days later it's here, and therefore in another square to the sun. Obviously at you know, another 7 days after here, the moon is in opposition to the sun. And then, you know, if we go all the way around, the moon connects with the sun, and that's known as the new moon. And this is the full moon over here. So we've got like the effects of the moon going around the sun. Now, The moon represents the idea of mystery, of feminine, of the cycles, of the tides. The moon is really about our feelings, and the moon really represents as we're tuning into ourselves. So it's very much the emotional body, the soul body, the psyche, as some people call it. It also, I think, represents people when they're really not being observed, because you really get their true nature. And so for a lot of people, myself included, when I look at children, I think if they're left alone to play amongst themselves, you'll usually see their moon sign first rather than their sun sign, because they're at ease and they're just being their sort of like psyche self. It's the sort of underlying current of the time that they were born into. And then as they get older, the sun seems to take a lot more prominence, and the sun is really about the ego. It's the personality. And if you think about it, the personality is quite constructed. So for instance, like we learn how to construct our personality. Now, some people, if you think about like the sun, I was looking at the plants with my sons in the garden the other day, and I noticed that as the sun came up, all right, I already knew it happened, but I was pointing out to the boys, and we were noticing that the flower heads follow the sun around. It's like it's a place of interest. It grabs us, and the sun is radiating, whereas the moon is really reflecting light. So the moon is very much reflective, and it's a yielding process. It's a yin process. It's very feminine. Like I said a couple of days ago in a different show, the moon is considered a feminine influence, and the sun is very masculine. And it's very much about our constructed personality. And I really like this phrase, how we come alive. So for instance, I'm a Sagittarius, but my moon's in Pisces. If I'm on my own, I'm really actually kind of daydreaming most of the time, journaling, reading, noticing things, reflecting on things, and just tuning in and just kind of minding my own business. But if I'm in a public space, my sort of practical and friendly and open and kind of let's get it done, let's just be open and honest, that side of me comes forward, and that's my constructed personality. But it also feels very much at peace with who I am. So it's our easiest self-expression, and I'm guessing the way I express myself as a Sagittarian is the most easiest for me, born at the time that I am. So it's very much about the clarity and the way we do stuff. Okay, so when the moon and the square, the sun are in a square, the square energy, it creates a dynamic whereby neither of them can really express themselves very easily. So the sun here, if it's in the sign of Sagittarius, say, like mine is, it wants to be truthful and honest, and it wants to be expansive. It wants an adventure. It wants to have some fun. It's probably got quite a naughty sense of humor, very raucous. They'll give everything a go. They'll try things out. They're wanting to experience life. And then the Pisces moon here. Now, mine isn't actually in a square. It's just out of the square. So I don't have quite the same sort of difficulty as other people with a saggy sun and a Pisces moon. But the Pisces moon here, they're not so, they're not so much about being a daredevil. They don't really want to take life by the balls. They're a little bit afraid of being truthful. And for them, truth is very sort of subjective, and Pisces isn't very boundaried. In fact, neither of those signs are particularly boundaried. Pisces is kind of here, there, and everywhere. And of course, if the sun is wanting to express itself and like, come on, then let's go, let's charge off into this new adventure. And then the emotional side is kind of saying, well, hang on, I don't feel quite safe. Look around, there's all this stuff going on. Oof, bit scary. So, you see how these things can really challenge each other. One of the problems with the square is that, or what is seen as a problem, is that for planets to be in squares, they're all in different elements. So you probably know that there's fire, earth, air, and water. So, if you go 3 signs on all the way through the zodiac, you'll have fire. Hang on. Sorry, this is Sagittarius. You'd then have water, then you would have air, and then you would have Earth last of all. So you have a different planet that is related, but in a different kind of element. They have a different way of doing things. So what I see here mostly with the sun and the moon, because the sun is very much about our ego and our head, it's head versus heart. Now the good thing is you can work through it, but it's just a lot of hard work. In the opposition, when, you know, if the moon was here, for instance, it becomes almost like you are a split personality. You've got these two parts going off at the same time. And if you're lucky, you might be able to compartmentalize your head and compartmentalize your heart and somehow make it work. But with the square, you can make it work. It's just a lot of hard work. It's not that natural. And so what you find is self-expression feels very stifled, and you feel very out of sorts, kind of really a little bit odd. Let's just see if there's any questions or anything coming up. So Sarah's saying, my sun is in Gemini, my moon is in Aries, I think. Well, that's quite useful and quite beneficial, Sarah, because with the placement of your sun and the moon, they're 60 degrees away from each other, which is known as a sextile. And I'll talk about that in another session. And the sextiles seem to work quite well because Gemini is an air sign and Aries is a fire sign, and the air and the fire, they've got a kind of relatedness about them, you know, so they're both kind of expanded. They're both known as being masculine signs, so they're more likely to do things rather than sit back, you know, unless you've got other things in your chart that are really overshadowing that, you know, that would really, really come out. And the moon in Aries is very dynamic as well. In fact, one of the examples I'm going to have a look at the end is in Aries. And I'm going to have to whiz through this because I am actually coming to the end of the show as well in a second. So trying to keep these to 30 minutes. These would be lovely teaching units. Well, that is the plan. I think I've lost a few people in response to your question, Carl. I think that was when the internet went down, but never mind. So one of the things about the moon and moon being square the sun is that it changes every 14 days, which I've mentioned. So it's quite a common thing. You know, you'll meet lots of people with their moon and sun squared. You know, it's not an unusual energy to know people that aren't quite at peace in their own bodies. But when you know people who've got their moon and their sun in the same element, like all in water or all in fire, you really do notice that the personality just seems to kind of pop out somehow. It just seems to be very easy. It's also worth knowing if if the moon is applying to the square, it will just be before 90 degrees. If it's after the square, it's slightly easier. If you're born with it slightly after, you've already kind of gone through the major part of the trauma. You're just born after the trauma when your mum was giving birth to you. So here's just one example I'll share today. I won't use the others, but this is somebody who's got the sun in Capricorn here, and you'll see this square to the moon in Aries. Now the moon in Aries, it's about your feelings, and the feelings are quite direct in the sign of Aries. So in the sign of Aries, the moon wants to feel quite like you feel much more at home when you're being a bit individual. And when you're self-determined, you much prefer to generate your own life and take responsibility for it and just get on and do it. You also tend to feel quite suffocated when people are trying to put their emotions onto you. So I know, Sarah, you quite like the technology of Dr. Dane here. So the whole "who does this belong to" is a real thing that a moon in Aries person would say, because they really know their boundaries of where their feelings begin and end. And don't mess with that, because they'll tell you if you're going into their boundaries. But this person here has also got the sun in Capricorn. And with the sun in Capricorn, you know, their personality is all about ambitions and taking their time to get somewhere. You know, they don't mind doing things slowly. They're very, very practical. They don't need much to survive on. They don't need much praise. In fact, they're really quite a bit anti it, really, because they already know who they are. You know, they don't need you to boost them up. They're very, very self-reliant. So here you've got somebody who is really patient and wanting to work slowly but surely, with somebody who feels very individual and feels easily suffocated, meaning that they probably don't work very well with with others. And so this person who wants to get on, like the Capricorn sun signs, they do work quite well with each other. They're usually in a supervisory role or a management role, but they do like to collaborate, and they're very, very practical at delegating. They're very good delegators, in fact, Capricorns, because they can be very straightforward and take the emotions out of things. But then with this moon in Aries, they really don't want to work with people so much. They like to maintain their distance. So I would recommend that someone like this would be much better off delegating the people stuff to somebody else within their company if they are a high riser, or if they're working in a very small business, that they'd be much more comfortable working for themselves. But if the moon was in Capricorn and the sun was in Aries, you would have somebody that was much more of a leader. So like the sun in Aries, for instance, they're independent, strong-willed, really determined, really wanting to, their whole personality is like, hey, look, let's do this. And they'll get on, and they're self-resourcing. That's similar to Capricorn, but the Aries sun just gets on and does it. And they don't want to wait around. Like the Capricorn will have a slow but steady rise, whereas the Aries will do it without even putting a plan in place. But then when they've got their moon in Capricorn, if it was reversed, the moon in Capricorn makes somebody feel very reserved, slightly cautious, very respectful in terms of their relationships. They're very balanced and they're very measured. And so this is somebody, who would want to be a go-getter, who is also very reserved and kind of respectful in sometimes they might be seen as a bit cold because they don't connect with their emotions, but they would handle their businesses very differently. And you can see the conflict between the two styles. So anyway, that was just a little zip through just to give you an idea. There's an example of there's a moon in Aquarius versus a sun in Scorpio. That's, that brings in a whole other range of experience and feelings. So there you go. That was my little quick moon and sun square. I hope that was useful. So sorry about the disconnection earlier. That really did take me by surprise, I have to say. When you take responsibility, like full responsibility to get everything right, and then something outside of your control kind of like just pulls out the plug. Anyway, Sarah's saying yes. I'm guessing that really resonated with you in terms of the moon in Aries, and you're saying, damn lady, you're good. Well, I love that. You can come back. Thanks so much for that. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely weekend. And if you're around on Sunday at 6 p.m, let me know if you want me to do a quick reading of your chart and answer some questions in the mailbag. I'll also be doing a forecast. And here's what I'm thinking about doing with this show is that I'm planning on running it, say, Monday to Thursday, having a daily look at the next day's stars, and also maybe sharing something about astrology that I find fascinating or that's come up or is coming up. I'm also hoping to interview a few astrologers along the way. So, maybe they could share their thoughts about moon's sun square and stuff like that. So I'm hoping it's going to be a kind of innovative and informal resource and a place to hang out and a place to ask questions. So anyway, if you're free on Sunday, I'll see you there. But if not, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll connect again with you real soon. Bye for now.